by the 8th of February, 30 days, 1 month, we're breaking out. Also, both of those, coincidentally or not, January into February. This is not a 30-day shakeout, so you should not expect price to just fly back through the range super easily, right? If it does reclaim and come back into range, you should expect price to behave in the way that it has shown you to behave in the preceding trend. A really, really, really simple rule of thumb is the amount of time it took to go down is the amount of time it will take to reclaim. You've seen me do this a few times, but let's imagine the bottom's in here. 48 days, okay? If you just imagine that it will take 48 days to break out, minimum, from here, that would mean that if we get this nice strong squeeze up through the range, it's too soon. We probably take out the highs, some people take profit, cut their losses, whatever, drop all the way back, consolidate, hold, and then we're able to break out. Something roughly equal. It is not going to be exact, but when you look at price action forming, this is how proper structures begin, because you have a low, you have a low, you have a sweep, you then have a big rally, because people get too bearish at the lows and then they get too bullish at the highs. You come back to form another retest, a retest. Very, very, very rare does it go from a 2 to 3 month range to then just straight away breaking out. What can happen is you have a decline, right? A bearish 2 to 3 month range, and then it just breaks straight out. We saw this in June, July of 2021. But this was different, right? This was 2 months, right? And it was down, and it was down, and it was down, and it came up, and then it didn't pull back into the range. It went higher. But that's because it was a downtrend, right? That was already after a 60% correction and 70, 80, 90% across alts. That's different. That's coming off a bottom. We're obviously not coming off a bottom here. We're coming off a top. So if the top does hold, don't expect it to break straight away. I would expect it then to show some signs of recovery and then going again. You can even see this on smaller ranges and smaller time frames, like this. Right, here was a top. Here was a top that we broke down from. How long did we spend in the top? We spent 36 days. How long did we spend reaccumulating before we had the next breakout? We spent 48 days. Okay? So you had about 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks of a top. Then you had about 7 weeks of a reaccumulation for the breakout. And on each of these ways, like each step along the way, I should say, like here, people are like, oh, we're back. That's it. We've reclaimed the 50 EMA. We've reclaimed the bands are about to go green. But it's too soon. And then it drops back. And what do they do? They get bearish again. Oh, no, it's going lower. And then it's, oh, it's still below the bands. It's bad. And then it pops up here with the biggest show of strength, consolidating back inside the range. And people fade it. They're like, no, I don't believe it. People never believe those because it doesn't look good there, right? In the benefit of hindsight, it looks great. But when you're live in the market, in the moment, this doesn't look that good to the naked eye, right? In fact, I should get a chart that has more price history so you can see it even more clearly. And we'll zoom in. Because this is important too. People are going to pull out all the reasons once it does start to show that strength again. Right? There. People are going to pull out all the reasons why this is not bullish. Remember, this was post-COVID. So people were still bearish. They were coping super hard post-COVID bearish. They were like, resistance there, right? Resistance above. Nowhere near all-time high. So at this point, the easiest thing to say here was, this isn't a bull market. Now, as we are right now, that's difficult to say because most people think it's a bull market because we hit all-time high. But over here, the disbelief, which is needed, you need disbelief for rallies, it was, look at this rally off the lows. There hasn't been a retest. There needs to be a retest here. Needs to be a retest there. One of the things you're definitely going to hear, and this is fucking proper mid-curve stuff, and you need to watch out for this, is sweeping lows. Right? People are going to say, these lows haven't been swept. These lows haven't been swept. And, even this low, right? It doesn't matter which ones. Pick any of them. Any significant daily level. Because people say, no way that we can't, there's no way we can go to all-time high without taking these stops and these stops and these stops. The market's not going to give a free ride to all these people who've got long since COVID. Well, guess what? The market did give them a free ride. And then some. Right? So that's important to remember, because we've already seen this along the way on the way up, right? We've seen this a bunch of times. We've had people calling for these lows need to get swept, right? This breakout's not going to hold because they need to be swept. There's no way all of this. Like, imagine you fucking longed. Like, just think about this. Imagine you long Bitcoin, or you just bought Bitcoin on this shitty little candle over here, right? That doesn't even have a lower wick, right? No lower wick on it. Just on that day. Let's even call it you put your stop there. And you're like, and you bought here. And you're like, probably going to get stopped out at 33,428. And then all of this happens. This is important to note because as price action traders, we're always like very focused on sweeps, liquidity, right? Taking stops out, retests, all that kind of stuff. At times, like this, the price is just too low. The supply-demand is imbalance. Now, we do not have an imbalance now. If anything, we have an imbalance in the opposite direction, meaning price is too high, short term. But over here, price was clearly too low because the ETFs were coming, right? And if the ETFs are coming, look at all the fucking area we can run it into. This is when we had a futures ETF. How the hell could price be there when we had a spot ETF coming? And why did it go up in 2020 with no pullbacks? First of all, we crashed way lower than we would have other than COVID. And then it was recovering, but with massive money printing, trillions of dollars flooding the market. And Bitcoin has a direct correlation to that liquidity. So it was just way, way, way too cheap. So can you spot when Bitcoin is going to be really, really cheap again? It was super cheap over here. It was even still cheap there. It's not cheap now. And the only way you find these cheap prices is after the decline and the consolidation, right? Because let's say Bitcoin is supposed to be 100K this year or this cycle. And people are going to look at it and say, all right, well, that's going to require some kind of money printing. All right, cool. So before the money printing, you have the fear. You have to. You can't have it both ways. The fear, like COVID, like the banking crisis last March, the fear drives the Fed into action to print money, or the Treasury, or whoever. So you have the fear first. And the fear makes people think that Bitcoin's too expensive. Oh, it's way too expensive. Oh, this is so bad. Then they start to produce that liquidity. And at that point, all the fear of what drove us down, ETFs are selling, maybe there's going to be a recession, maybe the Fed aren't going to print, maybe liquidity is going to be bad, then suddenly the liquidity taps go back on. As soon as they go back on, Bitcoin should just be at 73. It should be there. But of course, it won't teleport there. It will climb a wall of worry. And people will say, oh, I can't buy here, right? Because these lows weren't swept yet. Because these lows weren't swept yet. Because these lows weren't swept yet. And if you try and become good at identifying early uptrends, you can literally get long with no pullbacks, no sweeps. You don't have to worry about your stops. Look how many easy entries there were along here. No sweeps, no sweeps, no sweeps, no sweeps. Literal flat candles, no sweeps, nothing, nothing, nothing. Buy the breakout, flat candle, buy the FOMO. All of that was just free. Now the first guys have just been touched off here on some of the exchanges. I suspect some more of them, and this is why I think the downtrend's not finished. I suspect some more of these freeloaders are going to have their entries tested or their stop losses tagged. And then we'll find a level, probably a level people don't expect, to find support, which could be here, but jury's out for me currently. And then we'll start to climb that wall of worry. We're just not in a wall of worry yet. You buy on the way up, not on the way down. The goal of trading is to buy as early as possible on the way back up. Now, I know a lot of people are looking at this and saying, oh, couldn't this be the bottom? Sure. If you want to take a trade and your system tells you, take it. Have your invalidation. Good. Right? But if you're saying this is the early uptrend now, and you're long from here, your stop loss better be no lower than that low, because you're trying to tell us, you're trying to say the bottom's in. So if it's not in and you get stopped out, just take your lumps, just take your stop. Okay, cool, on to the next one. But with these wall of worry slopes, in literally every single one of them, you get a chance to buy when the bands are green. Bitcoin, bands are green there. Bands are red here. Okay? Over here, after the lows. Bands went green. Bottom was in. Off the lows here. Bands went green. Bottom was in. Came back for a quick retest, but it didn't go below the ultimate low, right? Bands went green again. Bottom was in. And even a higher low. Over here, you could have just went to sleep for 2 months in summer and bought when the bands went green. Bottom was in. Over here, after the shakeout. Wait. Bands go green. Bottom is in. Through the middle of the summer, bands went green here and flicked. You probably would have got stopped out once. Bands went green again. Bottom's in. COVID. Bands go green. Bottom is in. Now, it's a very wide one. You'd have to have a very wide stop. But because there's such a wide stop, look at where Bitcoin ended up going. Right? The more it goes down, the more it can go up. And so on and so on and so on. I don't need to go through a million fucking examples. But don't try and guess the bottom. Stop trying to be a hero. When the bands go green again, you will have ample opportunity to get long, but not just to get long. It doesn't mean you just have to get long Bitcoin. It also means we are probably going to see a multi-week, if not multi-month, uptrend. There's two of them. Bands went green over here in September. We didn't top until January. Right? 4 months. Bands then went red briefly. Bands went green again in January, end of January. We didn't top until March, but altcoins didn't top until April. So your directional bias of the market was long for February, March, April, 3 months. And obviously in all of this, you could have just stayed long because that was a very quick shape. But if you're just following the bands. So what do you think happens the next time the bands go green? We're going to go up for probably weeks or months. Now they might go green first time and it's a fake out and we drop down a bit, but the bands don't lie. Higher time frame zoomed out, you're most likely to be in an uptrend again. So you don't need to preempt it. If you're long and you're holding spot and you're holding for the bull market, that's all fine. Remember, I'm talking trading. Your directional trades should not be biased towards long until Bitcoin's in a daily uptrend. Simple. I'm talking swing trades. If you want to scalp long, short every day, go for it. That's what I do. I do some scalp and do some day trading, absolutely. But if you want to see a directional, multi-week, swing trading market setup, wait for the daily bands to go green. Because even though there will be bounces off the lows here, the problem with when Bitcoin is not in a daily uptrend is that most of those altcoin rallies are going to be 2 or 3 days, then the smart money take profit, the dumb money keep opening swing longs, and Bitcoin hits, bands resistance, goes back down, and the alts make new lows and get stopped out. Patience. And you'll be rewarded. GM.